So when you were speaking, like, there's people with grudges, I'm over here like, yep, you damn right, yeah, yep, construct, good one, keeping it, you know, right? They're okay, they're keeping it. But then as you begin to talk, honestly, I would like to have my father in my life.
Whether you're a life coach, therapist, biohacker, invested in wellness, or in the healthcare profession, if you have an intention to work in psychedelic spaces, you're in the right place then. If you're called, get involved. But first, get informed. Let's talk the 4 N's: intake, intention, in-space integration, leading to deeper transformations. Psychedelic Coach Podcast, Tah and Kole. Walk you through the process, it's all possible. Leave space for the follow through. Most importantly, integration is not optional.
So when I'm in this space right here, I think of us all as planeteers, right? We all have a different modality of healing that we may do. Someone may be able to talk to your ancestors. Someone may be able to get you into a BDSM container. But we all have a different modality of healing that works well for us. But when we're in this container, we're in a safe space to explore that. We're in a level of awareness where people can, bridge the gap in different levels, areas, and spaces to help you pull and cultivate and create. We're sitting in a space, being intentional with one another. This is a journey. This is truly a journey, like a 5-day container, a 5-day journey. So as we get onto this frequency and we go up, and then we come back down in the wave, you will not leave here the same way you came. And I know that's like the old cliche thing, right? Like, oh, you won't leave the same. No, really and truly, you won't. As you come into this space and you leave, there's a lot of bulls here. And as one of my master coaches, O.E. Sun, would always say, leave the bullshit here. So I'm going to open up the floor for who's next, Tah? There he is.
So I got to ask, are you still in? Are you still all in? Yes. Can I see some hands? Some all in hands? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. All in all the time. Thank you. And I'm inviting you to not just be all in here at the Condor approach. I'm inviting you to be all in your life, in every moment of your life. I had quite a few conversations with people yesterday, and I found something very, very, that was common in a lot of spaces where people were feeling stuck. And I had 3 conversations yesterday where people were like, I've looked at all the things, but I haven't really been able to find out where I'm stuck, and I can't. And I sat with it last night, and some stuff came in around grudges. And how many people here have held a grudge? How many people here are still holding grudges? Okay, no. So there are people that are still holding grudges. Thank you. Grudges are constructs. Okay? They're a construct, and they are a space where we create a limitation on how we will allow ourselves to interact with another person or another circumstance, another construct. Okay? And so we get ourselves into these positions and we stay limited. And grudges fortify the oppression trap triangle. So for anybody who has not been here for the OTT, we're going to talk about the oppression trap triangle later on in the process here. But the oppression trap triangle is a place that we stay stuck. Okay? And there are 3 positions on that triangle: the villain, the victim, and the victor. The victor would be the hero, the rescuer, the savior. Now, grudges fortify the villain space. If you have a grudge and you are holding a grudge, you are fortifying a villain space. You're actually projecting it, you're crafting it, creating it, and you're supporting that other person staying in that villain energetic. Okay? And so if you are holding a grudge and you are very much aware that you're holding a grudge, I'm inviting you to be mindful of it. And if you want to change that, you can. Now there are unconscious grudges that we have that we've built into society. And this keeps us separated. When we are separated, we cannot be intimate, and we will hold a grudge and we'll put that grudge in our body so that every time we see someone else or something that represents that grudge, we will separate ourselves. And this fortifies the separation dynamic by creating a villain, okay? We see this very, very largely in the white supremacist models that run our planet right now. When we have people of different skin tones that have races that are tied to them, and we see another race that has maybe oppressed or done anything like that, and we separate them. There's a grudge there. And this is a societal grudge space. We have this in religious spaces, like the wars between Jewish folks and Christian folks, between Christian folks and Muslim folks. These are unconscious grudge spaces that I don't fuck with those people. I don't fuck with them over there. It's an unconscious grudge. If your parent did something to you as a child and you still hold a grudge to that space, there's a breach in intimacy because you're villainizing on autopilot. So I'm just bringing that to your attention space because this is something that I had a bunch of. There are some things when we do the Condor approach, there's a coalescing of conversation around these certain things. And I just wanted to open up with this. If you are holding grudges, it is not just an ideological thing. It becomes a physiological thing that you lock into your body and you craft your body around that. Tell me.
Oh, will you please speak to this with regard to ongoing abusive situations?
Sure. Ongoing abusive situations as far as grudges are concerned. So can you tell me what's transpiring?
Different family relationships where it's not safe to be in proximity with certain individuals because of their behaviors. And as a parent, trying to keep my children safe from those situations and feeling very limited in my ability to do so.
Okay. And so that doesn't sound like a grudge to me. It sounds like a protection space of you and your children.
That's fair.
Okay. And so when I'm holding a grudge against somebody, I don't allow them to change into a new person. I don't even give them the space or the room or the proximity, the proximity of idea that person can change and be something different. So I stay away from them. And so the breach of communication or the dysfunctional communication that I have, there's no opportunity for that because I don't give it the chance to breathe. And so an example of this would be, I had a grudge with my mother for a long period of time. And so I held it in my heart that my mother was always going to be this way. And so I did not allow, and I kept myself from being proximal to my mother because I did not believe that she had it in her to be different. And so what I started to do was I started to offer the opportunity, hey, mommy, look, if you want to have a different type of conversation with me, I'm open for it. And I'm not going to be around for this type of dynamic. But I left it open, and I left the possibility of her being different open. And I also kept my proximity boundaries with my mother. And so as I had conversations with my mother, I would just check in, hey, are you ready to have that kind of conversation with me? And she would say no. And I'd be like, all right, cool. Well, I'm going to stay over here. When you're ready, let me know. And I always left the door open for her, and I still have the door open for her to be in that space. And so with that, she has had the opportunity to remove herself from guilt spaces, from those types of dynamics, so that she could actually lean in. So my grudge is gone. My grudge with my mother has gone. And you can ask Cole about the difference in my physiology. When my mother called on the phone before, my whole body would seize up. Now my body doesn't. And so I let go of the grudge. I had to face the grudge. I had to get intimate with my grudge and see where the dynamics were. Offer the space and still keep myself safe and keep my daughter safe and everybody else. And so if I don't afford someone an opportunity to change, it keeps me separated from them. And it doesn't mean that they're going to change on my clock. It means I don't have to hold the grudge against a person, because the grudge damages the person holding the grudge, not the person that is on the receiving end of it. Does that make sense? Is that helpful? Okay. And so being mindful that you needing to be safe and you creating safety for yourself is not holding a grudge. This is you creating safety for yourself and you creating a firm and clear boundary. But when you don't speak the boundary out loud to the other person because you have a grudge, they don't have the opportunity to actually see where you are and process it. And when somebody can see where you are, they get the information and they can go process it when their nervous system calms down. If people are up at arms around you and they're abusive, chances are they're not safe somewhere inside themselves. And so you can offer the information to them. They can take that information, and when they're by themselves, they will process it. Most of the time when I speak to y'all, all of you, when I have conversations, 1 second, Cynthia, I got you. When I have these conversations with y'all, I'm offering rhetoric so that you have the information for later, so that when you're by yourself and you're alone and you can drop into a parasympathetic space, and we're going to talk about the nervous system a little later. When you can drop into a parasympathetic space, you can open up into considerations that are outside of you being in a fight or flight, or you being in an attack mode situation where you have to be reactive. Does that make sense? Cool. Awesome. Thank you. Nice deep breath, y'all. Sincere, tell me.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I didn't really think that I was going to have much to address this time, but you always find something.
Always.
Because that whole little exchange and that conversation, because I was like, okay, I'm triggered.
Can we turn that up?
And then she came on and asked her question. I'm like, okay, cool, I might not have to say nothing. And then you worked it out, and I was like, okay, I do. Because, all right, my situation is not the same, but it's similar. So for me personally, some of y'all here know the story, my story, my backdrop. I ain't gonna go through the whole thing, but my father and me, I see him, I don't even really like the term a toxic person, but if it was a person, it would be him, right? So throughout my life, I've been through these stages of growth and development, and I'm like, I don't want to talk to you because you're negative, you're poisonous, you're this, and I always come back. I always come back. I'm 44. I just turned 44. I think I was 42 the last time I seen him, and I was like, you know what? People change. I go through growth. I've changed. Right? Everybody in here has went through that where we say, you know what? If I could change, I could. No. I bring you in my life, you disrespect me, you disrespect my family, you disrespect my kids. So at this point, finally, at 40-something years old, I chose violence that day. He did not come out of the house, luckily, but I let him know, don't worry, when I see you again, we'll continue this on. He moved to another state. I have cut off all communication because I feel like anytime anybody brings me to a point where I'm going to practice violence again, nah. So when you were speaking, like, there's people with grudges, I'm over here like, yep, you damn right, yeah, yep, construct, good one, keeping it, you know, right? They're okay, they're keeping it. But then as you begin to talk to her, because honestly, I would like to have my father in my life. I went 40 years without having my mother, 30 years. Had a conversation with her at like 40, 41, 30-something years not having my mother. Now, I don't talk to my father, right? And so it's kind of like, damn, can we just keep some family around? You know what I'm saying? But I don't know how to deal with it anymore. And that's why I had to cut it, because it's like, so now I'm hearing you talk, and I'm like, all right, well, let me throw this shit out. Let me see what he got for this one, because he all, I know it's going to end with like, does that help you out? And I hope I'm like, yeah. Because right now I'm like, nah, you know. All I see is hold the grudge, keep it. He's not going to change. His mother passed. His father passed. He's angry at the world. He's pissed off. There's nothing that helps. And all he does is disrespect and hurt people because of his pain. And me being who I am, we can't exist in the same place at the same time.
How does that feel? How does that feel, Sincere?
It feels... it feels motivational, and I hate saying that. I'm just telling the truth. It feels motivational.
There you go.
It feels motivational.
Your father's hurt and pain feels motivational?
Yes.
Okay.
His responses to his hurt and pain, his reactions to his hurt and pain feeds my want to respond to his actions. I've been forced at a young age to take part in his actions. So at this point, I feel like if you around me and I don't do something, then I'm supporting what I've been saying my whole life I didn't like. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing, man. And thank you for your openness. And thank you for loving your father through it all. Thank you for receiving the motivation from him. Thank you for wanting to still lean in, despite the way he's been towards you and your fam. Thank you for that. Now, holding a grudge and holding a boundary are not the same thing. It sounds like you're holding really firm boundaries to protect yourself and your fam. You can hold a grudge and a boundary, which is a lot more work. And the recognition of your father's hurt, and that's what he's driven himself into, or what his circumstances have driven him into, is not something that you can change. You can leave him space to express, you can leave him space to be in where he is, and you can still hold your boundaries. I'd like you to be in my life, and if this is the behavior you're going to have, it's not going to be a part of my situation. When you're ready to shift that, the door is open for a conversation on it. And that's it. That's a boundary. But you don't have to hold the grudge. You can, if that fuels you and if that gives you energy and that's what you want, you can do that. It's still placing him in the villain space. And if it's placing him in the villain space, it's placing you in the victor space. And it's placing you and your family in the victim space. And it's trying
I volunteer.
That's
he is
perfect.
a villain. He is a villain. I'm not putting him in his space. He is. Well, he's a villain.
Okay. And with any villain, there's a story that leads the villain up to the space where they are. And it's usually trauma-based. Not usually, it's always trauma-based. Hitler, trauma. Napoleon, trauma. Idi Amin, trauma. All of your presidents in the United States, trauma. All of this stuff is trauma-based. And so if we don't look at the intricacies of the trauma, we bypass that and we put the evil whammy on somebody and we fortify the grudge. And that keeps us separate from one another. And so this is where the roadmap to intimacy comes into play, and it's perfect because that's the first thing that we're going to talk about anyway. But this is the conundrum with the whole thing around the oppression trap triangle, is how do you get out of it? And we have been so programmed to be separate from one another, we cannot allow another person to be in their space without having to remedy that. And that's one of the challenges that we have. So I don't have an answer for you on what to do. I have some possibilities of what you can do. And I'd love to hear about whatever it is that you lean into. So if you want to have the villain circumstance in your life, that's awesome. I did that shit for a long time and it wrecked my body. And I'm outside of the space of villainizing anybody. I want to know what's driving that, and let's have a conversation about it. I want to know. I want to know. I want to go to that prison where Bill Cosby is, and I want to have a conversation with him. I want to sit down with R. Kelly, and I want to talk to him. I want to have conversations, because when I sat in that ER with murderers, okay, people who killed multiple people, and I sat there and I asked them, what drove this? They said to me, nobody has ever asked that. All they did was tell me that I was wrong, that I was bad. Nobody cared about the abuse that I had as a child, because what I did trumped that. And so it diminished my humanity. And you're the only person that has ever seen me as a human being, despite my actions. And that's the kind of love that I offer humanity and other people, because that's the kind of consideration I want. And I know my mother wants that kind of consideration deep inside, no matter what she does, because she's hurt. And anybody that has done anything to any other person from a space of hurt wants that deep inside, because they don't have power for themselves. And your father is powerless. And so what he's doing is he's absorbing as much power from you as he can possibly get, because that's the only way he knows how to do it. And it's quite effective. That's why we're having this conversation.
You know, and it doesn't mean without consequence. And this is the other important thing, is even if someone's in a villain space, having consideration does not mean not have consequence for people's actions, or that we don't have ideas of what's right or wrong, because we all have those ideas. It's that if someone drives us even out of, like, I'm going to show them, they still have power to feed off of us, because an angry person feeds on creating hurt and harm in others. So it's that we are actually being manipulated by the triangle. It's not whether or not even it's bad to put someone in a villain or us bad to be in a victim. It's that that is what they feed off of, to hurt others because they've been hurt. So I see it more as a vampire style energy sucking, that is actually what they want. When they see you get a rise, that is the oxytocin kind of hormone hit that they get, that it's like you're giving them the good stuff, actually. And so I found that as I stepped more out of the triangle, it took their power away, because they were still trying to take it from others. And when they couldn't get a rise out of me anymore, and I'd just be like, if you speak to me like that, I'm going to remove myself. And the second they did, I just turn around and walk away. And I found that actually upset them more, but I'm like, good, you sit with that. I'm out. And so it's not that, because I'm with you, Sincere. I have some people, I have no problem with any of my human parts and the constructs I want to keep. Someone's like, I don't think that's a good idea. I said, yup, that's right, and I'm keeping it. So I love that you owned that, because again, this isn't about us being outside of all these things. It's, are we aware of it so we know what we're participating in? So that if we want more ease in our life, and we go, all right, well, I guess I'm gonna have to let go of this vendetta. Okay, fine. But it's the awareness only, and what you decide to do with it. But you'll actually find, as you just release attachment to the compensation of, like when he's hurt, it makes me, I don't want to be like him, so it makes me strive for more. But if you go deeper than that, 7, that's who you are. Not because of your father. It's because that's who you are. Because you love. Because you protect your people. Because you love your family. Because you are you. And so at some point you'll realize that you don't need that to drive you anymore, because you have that all within you. You don't need him. And that's when the things diffuse. Not even if you never talk to him again, it still changes how the experience is within you. And again, you don't ever have to. Trust and believe that there's certain things that I own it, and Tah will say, do you want support with that? I said, I do not. Thank you. I want to sit here, feel sorry for myself, be pissed off, and think they're a piece of shit. He's like, all right, see you later. But it's actually just taking ownership for feeling the way that we feel. And not blaming other people for making us feel this way. It's like, no, I'm choosing this, and I'm okay with that. This feels valid to me. My feelings are valid, and this feels correct. And that's it. The goal is self-awareness, not some higher than we're all just going to evolve and go to the heavens. Maybe some will, but let me know if anyone in this room is. I'll grab your coattails on the way up, because I'm not.
Thank you, Kole. You know, this is a challenging space when you have the multiple constructs fighting with one another. You have your identity as a human being. One second. You have your identity as a human being, and you have the family structure, and then you have the relationship between father and son. There's a lot of things bumping up against each other in that space. And so I once heard, and I can't remember where I heard this, but the remedy for disrespect is distance. When you distance yourself from somebody, it gives them the space to contemplate their situation and not feed their monster. You keep putting food in the cage, the monster is going to keep growing. And so the remedy for that is distance. But the thing is, to have distance with a grudge is not the same thing as just giving a person some space and being in an empathetic space with that. And that's a challenging dynamic. You have something you wanted to share real quick? Can you just let him speak real quick? Thank you.
So the part that I was having even difficulty trying to figure out if I was in a grudge or not, I distanced myself. I've told my son is 16. He's very advanced. I'm like, yo, call your grandfather, go hang out, right? So I'm not nobody talk to, my son is very aware of how I feel about my father, because I'm very open with my children. I'll sit and cry and tell my children about how I feel about whatever. So he's heard me express to him why I don't force him to do anything, because my son has told me dang, sometimes I just be waiting on you to tell me that. And I'm like, not finna make you do anything. You gonna, you know. So with that being said, I don't block him from, you know what I'm saying, my children, or I just block him from my life personally, right? Mm-hmm. You know, so when you were saying like, I don't know if I'm holding a grudge or if I'm just really holding on to emotion and anger from all of the things that I'm aware of that he's exercised, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I don't know if it's a grudge. Because when you said like some things is different than boundaries, now I'm like, well, I think I got boundaries there, because I feel like if I had a grudge, I'd be telling my son, you better not go over there, right?
Let me ask you a question, fam.
Yeah.
Is this how you feel? You said, my son knows how I feel about my father. Is this how you feel about your father, the person? You feel about your father's actions in the past?
They one and the same to me. That's all I know.
Okay. And so his identity is fused with his actions. Okay. And so you hold him to his actions.
You said it again?
So you hold him to his actions. His identity is one with his actions.
His actions have formed the identity that I know of him. Like.
Okay. Yeah. And so they're fused. One thing that has helped me tremendously was to remove the human being of my mother from the actions that my mother has taken or not taken in regards to me. And when I was able to separate that, I was able to see her differently. It's the same thing with the people that came into that hospital that were doing all these things, that were locked up with the feds and all the institutions. I had to actively remove the action from the person to see the person. And when I was able to see the person, I could see things differently. It doesn't mean that I tolerated the bullshit. It means I saw them differently. And so this is where the play around constructs comes in. If you've assigned a person the title murderer, you have excluded the humanity from that person. If you assign a person the title abuser, you have removed the humanity and put them into the space of their action. And that removes the humanity from a person. And it makes it really, really challenging for us to forgive and to hold a grudge, a lot easier to hold a grudge space. And so it keeps us separated from one another. And this has been built unfortunately, in the United States of America, we have a prison industrial complex that fortifies this dynamic. And so the amount of money that's poured into the prison industrial complex in this country is fucking phenomenal. Okay, and if any of you don't know about it, I invite you to go take a look at how much money is poured into the prison industrial complex here. And it's not just black folks and Latinos, there's white folks up in there too. And they are feeding this dynamic because it is a huge moneymaker for us to have this type of situation and to put people in the shame box that deeply that we would fortify having a system that is fueled by this type of money. And it's a big space. So for us to have these types of separations that go legions deeper than the eye level, surface level situation and circumstance in here is part of the trap that we are in, and is part of the work that we're all in this room here to do, is to be able to see outside of these things that we've been pushing. We have been fortifying these systems. We've been fortifying the prison industrial complex. We've been fortifying the financial monsters. We've been fortifying white supremacy. We've been fortifying all this shit from a space of unawareness. And that's why we're here, man, to talk about this stuff, y'all. We're here to talk about this. I have stuff to teach right now, but this is more important than that. This conversation is more important. And Sincere, you know that I'm here for this conversation, fam. And we can go deep into it. We have and we will. And know that you're loved and appreciated for the boundaries that you keep for your family and for you in particular. Thank you. Nice deep breath, y'all.
So when you were speaking about your relationship with your mother, that's a pretty sensitive topic for me because I don't really have one with mine. I tense up what she calls. I avoid her phone calls. And the other night I was at dinner and I was just having a conversation and she came up and I realized how hard it is for me to accept love and affection from women because it lacks there. My dad was abusive to my mom, so my mom is just very standoffish. My dad died when I was in high school, so there's not a relationship there with him. It never was because of the things I saw as a kid. And my mom's just always pretty much just been rough around the edges. So sometimes even accepting hugs from people just feels uncomfortable. And it's sometimes difficult to accept love. And it's hard to give it sometimes too, because I feel like the one person I want it from, I can't get it. And I feel bad because sometimes it's like, I wish I had a different mother. I love my mom's best friend more than I have love for my own mother. My sister just had a baby, and I feel like that's the only time I see my mom show love is when she get a new grandchild. And for me, it's like, damn, I gotta have a baby to get some love from you. So that's something I've just recently come to realize, and it's kind of tough navigating that. I don't know if I've set boundaries where I don't want to be in contact, but it's like I always fall back on those boundaries because I want the love from her. And I do hold a grudge because you're still here. And why aren't you trying? It makes me kind of angry inside.
Thank you. And what is anger on top of all the time?
Repeat that.
What is anger on top of all the time? What's underneath anger?
Hurt.
That's right. Always. It's always on top of hurt. And your hurt is welcome here. And there's something that's being hurt inside you. Maybe your identity as a daughter, the relationship structure that you believe you would like to have with your mother. All of these things are threatened here, and they're not safe. And so there's an undercurrent of not being safe. And so these are structures that you've built somehow, who you are, who your mother is, what the relationship is between the two of you. These are construct spaces that you have built. And they were built how long ago? I don't know. But how do you create a new relationship structure that works for you? Have you written out what you would like your relationship with you, your relationship with yourself to be, your relationship with your mom to be, your mother? Do you know what her relationship with herself is? Is this a space that you've even contemplated and considered? The degree of idea. One of the things that I had an issue with as a human being was I never wanted to be a parent. And I have a daughter. And I stayed with myself very, very lonely in this space of annoyance as I raised my daughter. And there was a point where I was playing single father, and I did not even want to be a parent. I love my daughter, but I had a lot of resentment towards my daughter and held a grudge for my child. And I didn't tell anyone any of this, and I kept it inside. And so I had a grudge for myself as well. And so that hurt inside drove an anger sequence that was me beating myself up, me looking outside, receiving information around my daughter and not wanting to be a parent, me beating myself up inside. And so that ended up with me lashing out at my daughter. And at the last Condor approach, I told everybody about me hitting my daughter, the one time I hit my daughter. I can still feel it in my body. It had nothing to do with her. Your mother's behavior has nothing to do with you. And when you understand that, when you start to create your own relationship dynamics with yourself, you can shift that. It's going to take some time. It's built into your body. When she calls and you get this feeling in your body, it's built into your body. And so this is where you start having an awareness space. This is where, if you're microdosing, what's your intention of crafting your relationship around a new body in regards to your mother? When you're going into your deep journeys, is this something that you're getting your nervous system to refashion itself around? This is the intentional space when it comes to psychedelics. This is the intentional space when it comes to new habit formation around intimacy with yourself. What do you want? And that's not something you need to answer right now. I'm asking this in a rhetorical space. This is something that you can lean into later on. What do you want from your relationship with yourself? What do you want from your relationship with your mother? Have you contemplated? There's a book that I want you to get, and all of you can pick this book up if you want. And I'm not a salesperson. It's called What's Your Body Telling You? WHAT''S, Your Body Telling You, by a guy named Steve Sisgold. And you go through this book, and there's a part in the book where they ask you all these questions about what do you think your father felt when he found out your mother was pregnant? What do you think your mother was feeling when she got pregnant with you? The shit that came out of me was, I don't even know how to describe it when I did it. I was in tears when I had just all these approximations of the stories that I had created about how my mother thinks about me and believes about me that I had not even paid attention to. These are unconscious things. These are limiting belief structures that we create from when we're infants based on the data that comes in. And so these are some things that I want you to contemplate. What's your relationship with yourself? What's your relationship with your mom? And what do you think your mother's relationship is with herself? Just what do you approximate? And you can start to have a lot more empathy for your mom and the people around you in this space. Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah, does that help?
Yes.
All right, and if you need that title, I can tell you again later on. Okay?
So I'm not going to say what I originally was going to say because so much of it has already been said. Mm-hmm. But I am going to say that I feel that I am exactly where I'm supposed to be today, right now, right here. Everything that has been said since you've been on that stage and the young lady was on the video were things that we discussed before leaving today. My mother, which yesterday you made a comment at one point, and I was like, sometimes it has the opposite effect where it will push you and drive you, which is what it did in my instance. And I didn't realize it until somebody else brought it to my attention and said, what the hell are you trying to prove? And to who? When I finally sat down and said, and that was academically related. Mm-hmm. And basically I know, and at that point I realized, and that was maybe 15 years ago, that what I was still trying to prove, 5 kids, my own house in the Poconos, bought it at 29, doing whatever, but I'm still trying to prove to this lady that I'm not shit. I'm not gonna be anything, and killing myself trying to do it. So I resonated with a lot that was said. And to Cynthia, I wanted to say, you said, I'm 40, whatever. It took until I was 52, I'm 56 now, for me to get to where you already are. So you, in my book anyway, ahead of the game, in terms of checking it out. You know what I'm saying? And when I say to get to that point, the point was where I put me first. And I was like, I just can't see her. And this morning, we're talking, and what I tell you I had to do every single time I was going to my mom's house, what did I have to do? Take a Xanax. I could not go to my mother's house without taking a Xanax, because if I did, I would do what you said you did. And to prevent myself from getting to that point, I had to numb myself when I was bringing my kids 2.5-hour drive to go see my mom once or twice a month. Because otherwise, I'd be like, let's go. Let's just go, because I can't do this anymore. So thank you for sharing. I'm mad at you for making me cry, because I don't like doing that. And thank you for just being you and having this work.
Thank you, fam. Appreciate it. And thank you all for holding space. All right? Let's take a nice deep breath. Thank you for being in the space to let your stuff come up. When things come up for me, I have to move with it. And this is part of my intuitive space. Grudge came up. And so look where we are. Okay? And this is very relevant stuff. The family structure is a structure. It's an idea complex, and we are programmed to protect the family structure for a reason. We used to be out in the bush. We used to be out in the jungle, and we could not survive by ourselves, right? And we built this structure, and we've used these old structures for long periods of time. And our parents, we love them and we're offspring from them and so on, but sometimes they have dysfunctional patterns and sometimes they got to get left alone. Family members, cousins, brothers, sisters, but the family construct will tell you that you must go back. Said you have to take a fucking Xanax to go see your mother. Seriously, I know a lot of people that have to take a Xanax to go see their parents. This is a real deal, y'all. And this is where courage comes in. You have to have courage to move forward with your life, and sometimes that means leaving motherfuckers behind. That's scary shit. I've had to make my circle a lot smaller because of that. And it's frightening, paralyzingly frightening with the depth I love people.